Hey y'all, week 5, wow! And today we are talking about unforgiveness, giant number 4, unforgiveness. A few years ago, I wrote a book before this one and it was about divorce recovery, and I had a chapter in it called The Right F Word, Forgiveness. And it's because when you go through a divorce or you go through any situation where you feel like you've been wronged, depending on your upbringing, a few F words may occasionally come to your mind and your mouth in your hurt. But forgiveness is the only thing that will really work. But seriously though, it is a huge giant and it really does stop us from progressing and moving forward in a healthy way. It is why I did the first webinar training that I've ever done was on forgiveness, and I gave practical steps to forgiveness because I find a lot of people don't know where to start, and even if they feel like they should forgive, they don't know how or why to do it. So I encourage you to take the course if this is something that you feel challenged in the area. I will drop the link below if I remember. Yeah. So in the course and in the book though, I talk about the myths surrounding forgiveness because I think this particular topic area has so many myths and wrong thinking about it, and it keeps people stuck in this place. So I said a lot of us think some of the myths are unforgiveness is condoning. We think that if I forgive you, that means I condone your action. It does not mean that. They think forgiveness is forgetting. So I forgive you, that means that I'm automatically going to forget every single thing that you've done to me, no matter how devastating. It doesn't mean that either. Forgiveness means reconciliation. It does not mean that either. Just because you forgive somebody means that y'all have to get remarried or y'all have to become best friends again or any such thing. You can forgive people and they can stay separate from your life. Forgiveness is always a one-time thing. Sometimes people think, oh, I forgive you once and that's the end of that. Now, no, sometimes this is something that you have to stay with and stick at until you really get it out of your soul. So this is one of the reasons that people don't forgive people, because they believe a myth surrounding forgiveness. Please know though, hear my heart, I am not saying that forgiveness is always an easy thing to accomplish by any means. Sometimes it can be really difficult thing to execute because you have some people that have gone through some grievous things. I mean, horrible things like murder of a loved one or rape or stealing and all kinds of things. So I'm not saying that it is easy to accomplish, especially if one, it has been a horrible thing like the things I just mentioned, or if it is something that was repetitive or something that happened over a course of years. It's hard, but I think offering forgiveness and getting that unforgiveness out of your soul is worth every bit of effort that you can put in to give it, because unforgiveness has some serious weapons. It can result in spiritual repercussions if you are walking with the Lord. If you know that you have to forgive to be forgiven, it can bring stinking thinking in your head, because every time you see this person, the circumstances comes up, you have all these negative thoughts. It can lead you into mistrust and isolation. For instance, somebody at church hurt you and all of a sudden you done with church because this one person hurt you, or this woman hurt you and she took all your money. All of a sudden you hate all women. It can lead you into physical illness. Here again, remember, we are body, spirit, soul. Everything is connected. So when you have all these yucky things up in your soul, stirring up for years on end, it eventually makes its way out into physical symptoms. Unforgiveness can do this. It's been linked to a number of physical symptoms. I talk about these in the book. So one of the things that I talked about in the books was isolation. And sometimes when somebody has done you something really wrong, all of a sudden you just keep it to yourself. So this is what I wrote in the book. Isolation. You become convinced that it's safer for you to withdraw from humans, well, at least from the group to which your offender belongs. For example, A man hurt you, so you no longer engage with any males. A congregant maligned your character, so you stop going to church. You decide the only one you can trust is yourself. Hear me. It is one thing for God to isolate you for a period and for a purpose, but it's an entirely different thing for you to isolate yourself because of hurt. So when we allow unforgiveness to send us into just isolation and keeping away from human beings, it is very destructive. So we have to fight back. We have to fight back. As with all the other giants, we have to fight back on forgiveness. And we do this obviously by extending forgiveness, which admittedly sometimes takes a great deal of effort and time and conviction. We have to learn to extend mercy to others. We have to seek understanding sometimes, and we have to learn about the agape love that God has offered us so we can offer it to others. So I talk about all those different ways in which we can come against this thing before it starts to really destroy us, destroy relationships, destroy our environment, etc. So some of the tips for unforgiveness I give at the end of the chapter, I said, learn more and more about the act of forgiveness. Not a shameless plug for the course, but you can take any course you want, but learn what forgiveness really means, because sometimes your idea of forgiveness is totally misguided. Learn about the act of forgiveness. What does it mean? Second, consider the pros and cons of extending forgiveness. When I did the course, I had you do some lists and you did the pros and the cons of if I do, if I don't kind of thing, because sometimes you have to sit down and figure it out logically. So you may say in your head, I am never going to forgive for so and so for doing so and so. And you have to sit down and think about all the repercussions that is going to come from that. How it's going to affect your family, how it's going to affect you, your business, your money. How long term is this thing going to go on? How is it going to affect all the different cycles in your life? So consider the pros, consider the cons. I say look for the clues and check for buried offense, because sometimes you do not even realize, or you think in your mind you have forgiven somebody until you see them, or until a similar circumstance comes up, or until you may look down the road and see that they're succeeded and they got a promotion or something, and you just start feeling this thing, you're gonna, and then you realize that you never really forgave that person at all. Or you realize that you cannot think of one good thing to say about that person, then you might have a buried offense that you need to deal with. Another quick tip, make sure you're not driving down bitterness highway. You don't want to get on that road where you're just bitter and angry. It is a horrible place to live. I said put yourself in other shoes. I mentioned early, get understanding, because sometimes it helps us. Not all the time, but sometimes it helps if you can put yourself in the other person's shoes, because we often judge people by ourselves. So if you can't imagine doing something to somebody, you can't imagine why they would do that to you. But they're not you. They have different value systems. They grow up differently. They want different things. They process differently. Their emotions are different. People are not ourselves. So sometimes if you sit back and you think the thing through, whatever the offense was, whatever the situation, and you realize, you know what, they really didn't mean me any harm. Because to tell the truth, half the time that we are offended, the people that offended us had no intention of offending us, and they never meant to, and we just took the offense. So sometimes putting yourself in the other person's shoes and getting some understanding really helps. Another tip is imagine your life if you had not received forgiveness. This is something God teaches us. Think about it. I am sure you have not been perfect from the time you were 3 until now. You have made many mistakes, and you too have hurt many people, willingly, knowingly, or not. And they extended forgiveness to you, and similarly you should extend to others. So I said freely receive and freely give. So I hope I've given you some food for thought about forgiveness. As I said, if you really have an issue with this, if there's one thing in your life that you just can't get over, maybe you can take the course and maybe it can help you. All right, thanks again for joining me, and we are moving on to our next giant next week, which is regret. Another interesting fellow. Okay, thanks again. Have a wonderful and a blessed week, and I do so appreciate you. I appreciate your communication, and I thank you again for joining me in this journey. Bye bye.